Dune, David Lynch's ultimate science fiction epic. In 1984, Dune took audiences to a world beyond their experience and imagination, a world of our distant future, a world of a precious resource known as spice, which is found on the planet Dune. Dune also took us to a universe of exploring different societies and their customs, politics, and mythologies. This space-age spectacle had all the hallmarks of being a classic, what with it having David Lynch attached to it and its all-star cast led by Kyle MacLachlan. However, when Dune hit theatres in 1984, it wasn't exactly love at first sight with movie audiences. And although these days it's considered a cult classic, the big question is, at the time of its release, did it deserve better? Well, today we are going to ride a sandworm and explore 10 things that you didn't know about Dune. Well, maybe you might know one or two of them, but hey, 10 things sounds better than 8 things plus 2 things that you already knew. So, let's check it out. Number 10, based on a book. Dune is based on a 1965 novel of the same name. Originally, the book was published as 2 parts in Analog magazine before being published as one novel. Dune was written by American science fiction writer Frank Herbert, who would frequently write for science fiction magazines like Amazing Stories and Astounding Science Fiction. The genesis of Dune started in 1959, when Herbert started writing a magazine article about sand dunes in Oregon. However, as his writing of the story evolved, he went down a storytelling rabbit hole, where the story led to the more fantastical and complex story of Dune as we know it. The novel won a Hugo Award in 1966, as well as being followed up by a further 5 sequels, leaving a lasting imprint in the world of science fiction literature. And in 2003, Dune was named the best-selling science fiction novel. In other words, when it comes to science fiction books and stories, Dune is a very big deal, and a movie adaptation was inevitable. Number 9, production hell. As early as 1971, there were several attempts to get a movie version of Dune off the ground, in order to bring the epic science fiction fantasy to life on the big screen. Planet of the Apes and Dr. Dolittle producer Arthur P. Jacobs was auctioning for the rights so he could produce a movie version in 1971, but that ended up falling through when he died in 1973. Then in 1974, Dune became a French production, with Alejandro Jodorowsky at the helm of director. During this production, British rock band Pink Floyd were approached to score the movie, along with some casting possibilities like Orson Welles and Mick Jagger, and even surreal artist H.R. Giger provided some designs. However, the production collapsed due to the budget of the production going haywire, and the adapted story reaching to be a staggering 10 to 14 hour long movie. So in essence, this production went nowhere. But it wasn't a complete waste, as some of H.R. Giger's designs would influence designs that he would go on to create for the movie Alien. Number 8, Ridley Scott was going to direct. Flash Gordon and Conan producer Dino De Laurentiis then bought the rights to Dune in 1976, after the collapse of the previous production, and it was here a movie version actually started to get some momentum. Unlike the previous version of the movie, which was 10 plus hours long, they managed to get the script down to 175 pages, with it now being a 3-hour long movie, and Alien director Ridley Scott was hired to direct Dune. Due to all the material and lengthy time duration, Scott's plan was to cut the script in half and to make 2 movies. However, after 7 months, Scott found the production process to be long and tiresome, and he knew that if he was to commit to the project, it would take 2.5 years to make the movie. So he left the project to direct Blade Runner instead, another science fiction gem that was underrated for its time. Number 7, David Lynch turned down Return of the Jedi to work on Dune. In 1981, the movie rights for Dune were about to expire, so Dino De Laurentiis knew that he had to find a director for the project. After Dino's daughter, Raffaella, saw The Elephant Man, she felt that David Lynch was the director to go for, so he was approached. However, at that time, George Lucas was courting Lynch to direct the final film in his original Star Wars trilogy, Return of the Jedi. Lynch didn't feel that Star Wars was right for him, so he chose Dune instead, where he would act as the movie's director and writer, where he would helm a new script. The irony being Lynch never read the book or even had a particular interest in science fiction for that matter. But despite that, he soldiered on and completed a new script within 6 months. Number 6. Filming location. Dune was given a budget of about $40 million, and in 1983 filming had begun, of which Dune was entirely filmed in Mexico. In order to bring the strange and surreal universe of Dune to life, over 80 sets were built, and exterior shots were filmed on sand dunes in Chihuahua. Dune would have been an ambitious production for David Lynch, who at that time made low-budget surreal movies with Eraserhead and Elephant Man. So this was his first, and thus far only big commercial Hollywood production. I guess the mainstream Hollywood system wasn't really for Lynch, as after Dune he would return to more postmodern, art house style of movies. However, if there was one major impact that Dune had on Lynch, it was its main star Kyle MacLachlan, of which Dune was his first movie role, as MacLachlan would go on to work on other Lynch productions like Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks. Number 5. The music of Dune. The music of Dune was composed by American rock band Toto. A similar thing happened with a previous Dino De Laurentiis production, Flash Gordon, of which had music performed by Queen. But regardless, Toto was contacted to score Dune, where they said hold the line and left the reins down in Africa to create music for the science fiction epic. I think it's a shame that Toto didn't score more movies, as their score is mesmerizing and dreamlike, but it also has some rock in there to give it a kick. And to me personally, I think the music of Dune is one of the highlights of the movie. However, the prophecy theme in Dune was composed by English musician Brian Eno, creating an alien ambient sound, which creates an out-of-this-world vibe of the movie and sets the tone that Dune is a movie unlike any other. Yeah, I'm actually a really big fan of the music in Dune. Number 4. Editing chaos. The first early rough cut of the movie was a whopping 4 hours long, but after some cuts and post-production edits, the cut that was intended to be released was 3 hours long. However, Universal Pictures, whom were distributing the movie, weren't having a bar of this, and insisted that Dune should be 2 hours long, which led to Dino De Laurentiis, his daughter Rafaela, and David Lynch to work around the clock, with them cutting scenes out and filming new, shortened scenes of existing longer scenes in order to keep the duration down, along with a new opening narration with actress Virginia Madsen, as well as other added voiceover narrations. This supposedly left a bad taste in Lynch's mouth, as he felt the studio interference got in the way of his original vision of Dune. After all, he was the movie's main creative force, as he was Dune's writer and director. So I would imagine that it would have been frustrating for him that he would have had to dissect his movie and add elements that weren't part of his original vision. Personally, I think the best thing to have done would have been what Ridley Scott wanted to do, cut the movie in half and releasing it as 2 movies. But for whatever reason, that wasn't meant to be. Number 3. David Lynch removed his name from Dune. The theatrical cut of Dune had a duration of 2 hours and 16 minutes. However, when Dune was to be broadcast on TV, unused footage from that cut was added back into the movie, which led to the infamous TV version of Dune, which was 186 minutes long, with it being shown over the course of 2 nights, with the second part even starting off with a recap of what was previously shown, making the TV event of Dune feel more like a TV miniseries. David Lynch was so against this cut, he insisted that his name be removed from the credits, where the pseudonym Alan Smithy was used instead, which is a common name replacement for directors who disown their movies. The same thing happened with that bizarre made-for-TV Birds sequel, The Birds 2. However, Lynch's name not being attached to Dune would go on to be more of a permanent thing, as the TV version was edited together into one 3-hour-long movie and released on many of Dune's home media releases, such as DVD, where Lynch's name was nowhere to be found. It seems that Lynch still has bad blood when it comes to Dune, as it's not really an experience he likes to talk about, and several times he has been approached by Universal Pictures to work on a director's cut of Dune, and Lynch has declined every time he's been offered. For better or worse, it seems that Dune is a movie that Lynch would prefer to leave behind. Even my standard Australian DVD of Dune is the long 3-hour version. which is credited to Alan Smithy as director. And the presentation of this DVD is not very good. The picture quality is low, almost making it look like a VHS transfer, with sudden cuts and jumps made where TV commercials once were. Yeah, not the best quality here. Number 2, action figures. Given that Dune was a science fiction spectacle coming out in the wake of Star Wars, an action figure lineup of Dune was inevitable, of which one was released by LJN, which included characters from the movie, a sandworm, and vehicles. For a start, these figures look great. They are colourful and well detailed and really capture the likenesses seen from the movie. And it's generally a fun looking lineup, as there was well detailed heroes and villains to choose from. However, the sales for the figures were really low. They were so low, other characters who were meant to be part of the lineup were subsequently dropped, and thus the figures quickly disappeared into obscurity. The figures probably didn't work because the movie wasn't a hit and thus not many kids were going to see it. But also, despite the fact that Dune is a space adventure movie, it wasn't an adventure like Star Wars. It was more of an intergalactic drama, more aimed at adults than children. Its intricate storytelling and themes may have gone over kids' heads, especially impatient ones who wanted the action and excitement of Star Wars. Incidentally, in 1984, to coincide with the movie's release, Parker Brothers released a board game based on Dune, where players can play as characters from the movie while moving around on the board collecting spice while avoiding the sandworms. I wish I could tell you more about the board game, but truth be told, I've never played it. Sorry. So before we get to number 1, here are some bonus facts. Bonus number 1, variety of posters. Okay, so here's the main theatrical poster that was used, but wait a minute, where is everyone? Where have all the characters gone? Were they running late and unable to make it in time for the poster? Seriously guys, where are you? Oh, there you are. Gee whiz, Kyle MacLachlan, you really had me worried for a moment there. Yeah, seriously, this one's better, the other one's just too plain. I'm fascinated by the romance fairy tale element of this poster, although there is a lot going on here with stuff all over the place. Sometimes, less is more. And Sting looks like he's taken his Malcolm McDowell tablets. My favourite poster is this one. It has a variety of characters, it looks fun and interesting and just more visually appeasing. Although the golden archway in the background kind of makes it look Stargate-ish. I don't know, is that just me? Bonus number 2, Dune is part of the Marvel Universe. Yeah, that's right, to coincide with the movie's release, Marvel released a 3-part comic book adaptation based on Dune. What I find interesting about the comic is the artwork doesn't look very comic book-ish. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do like the artwork in this comic, but I can't help but feel like they were going for more of a lifelike illustration approach. But hey, more power to them. These comics will no doubt be of interest to Dune fans and collectors. Bonus number 3, TV series. In the year 2000, the Sci-Fi Channel made a 3-part miniseries based on Dune, which was simply titled Frank Herbert's Dune. The series got impressive viewership ratings and reviews by critics, which led to a follow-up series in 2003 called Frank Herbert's Children of Dune, which starred a very young James McAvoy. And what's unique about this is that it's a live-action adaptation that focused on the Dune novelization sequels, those being Children of Dune, of course, and Dune Messiah. Children of Dune also got great reception when it was broadcast, with the 2 Dune series being 2 of the 3 highest-rated programs to be shown on the Sci-Fi Channel in 2004. Number 1, the woes of Dune's release. Dune was released theatrically in December 1984 and performed very poorly in the box office, only making somewhere between $30 to $37 million in the States, not even recouping its $42 million budget. There was actually a lot of buzz surrounding Dune before its release, what with it being based on a best-selling novel and having David Lynch, the director of The Elephant Man, attached to it. But the movie got left behind Beverly Hills Cop, which was sweeping the box office at that time. Dune also didn't get the best reviews from critics, who thought the movie was a mess and all over the place, as well as not being visually pleasing. Dune made it to Siskel and Ebert's list of biggest disappointments of 1984, with both the critics calling the movie ugly, with Siskel particularly objecting to the movie's gross-out moments, and what he thought was cheap-looking special effects. Other complaints were that it felt that the movie had way too much crammed into it, making watching Dune more of a chore than escapist fun, and plans for a further 2 sequels were scrapped. However, over the years, fan appreciation of Dune has slowly built up, and has become something of a cult classic, with sci-fi enthusiasts going back to rewatch it and appreciating what the movie was trying to do. Create a unique, out-of-this-world experience, a world full of its own politics and mythology. So for better or worse, the 1984 Dune sits as a unique science fiction experience which is quite like no other. Dune is, if anything, a visually stunning movie. Apart from the odd creaky effect here and there, you do feel like you're being transported to alien territories with strange civilizations and customs. As far as the movie itself goes, well, I'm neutral. I understand why some people don't like it, but I also understand why others would love it. I'm somewhere in the middle. I appreciate the movie and I'm glad that I've seen it, but I also don't think that it's a stunning masterpiece either. And yeah, maybe it is an acquired taste. But if you like science fiction epics, then check out Dune. Anyway, I'm Minty, and fingers crossed that maybe one day David Lynch will make a definitive director's cut. There is a really good movie in there somewhere. Come on, this movie deserves it. See ya!